Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Love Talk Radio. Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing. Share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talent, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the blue button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directly to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, executive producer of the Female Solution radio show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world.
He wants instructions
to our
on how to
family
move.
in China, Ni Hao.
He's online with me now. He's on.
Namaste. In
All right.
Japan,
Well,
Konnichiwa. In
You're live.
Korea, Annyeonghaseyo.
I
In
can't talk.
Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag.
I can't
Poland,
because we're
Dzień
live.
dobry.
It's too late. We'll just have to figure it out. Let him know.
Okay, he says,
Hola.
figure it out.
In
She's,
Italy,
because she's live, she
yeah.
says she can't talk.
In Egypt, Asen Wasasen. In Ghana, Akaba.
She's,
In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Salbona. In Senegal, Nangede. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all.
Oh, there we go. Well, it looks like we're having a little bit of an issue here with our ads, but we're going to get that handled. Or not. So we're going to do ads later. We're gonna
Oh man.
Oh, there we
I got
go.
the sun bill today. This sunlight is really expensive, especially during this season. I'll probably have to work overtime to pay it.
Well, you better pay it on time. We don't want the sun to go out and we're sitting up here all day in the dark. Wouldn't it be terrible if God charged us for sunlight? Well, thank God, the light and heat from the sun is free. So why are we paying such high bills for the energy we use in our homes? Because we don't know how to use solar energy, the free energy from the sun. You can convert your regular home to a solar energy home and save tremendously on your electric bill. Take a look at your electric bill. Wouldn't you like to reduce or possibly even eliminate that cost altogether? Let one of our solar consultants show you how. Call today, 312-849-3456, and schedule a free consultation. That's 312-849-3456. What if you could live to be 120 years old and remain active, healthy, alert, and vibrant? Our bodies are made up of cells that are constantly rejuvenating. So if we take proper care of ourselves, we can literally defy aging. Join us every Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time to learn about self-care from Suson Essentials on the Female Solution Blog Talk Radio Show. Learn how to help your body and yourself feel rejuvenated each day through proper nutrition, sleep, frequency medicine, and many unconventional methods of self-care. I'm Jodi Suson. Join me and my amazing guests by calling in at 515-605-9325 and press 1 to speak. We'll help you achieve a breakthrough in your health today.
So, good morning, everybody. I hope that you all can see and hear us today. I am so grateful to let you know I have a special friend of mine joining the Female Solution today. His name is Stephen Kohler. He is the founder and CEO of Audira Labs. And Stephen and I met through the Young Entrepreneurs Academy in Palatine. And we'll be bringing him on in just a minute. And he and I would coach 12-year-olds on how to be entrepreneurs, business planning, and people management. And when it comes to people, I don't know that I know anyone who is as good as understanding and connecting with people and helping other people connect with one another as Stephen Kohler. He's a gift. Some of the things that I just want to share about Stephen before we bring him on is that he has 25 years of extensive corporate experience within organizations ranging from startups to Fortune 100s, different industries. He has an MBA from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. He has a BA in philosophy and from Northwestern here in the Chicagoland area. And he's a certified professional coach. He is also a balanced scorecard professional. And he is very passionate about spending time with his beautiful wife, Michelle, who I know and love. He has 2 gorgeous children, 2 dogs. He's a lifelong musician, and I think that it's going to be really cool when you pipe in and listen to what he's up to and how he brings music to listening. He's an avid barbecue enthusiast, and he loves to travel the world. Don't know that he or anybody else has been traveling the world a lot lately, but I know that he's done a lot of it over the time. So today's topic is becoming a listening leader. And before I bring on Stephen, which will be just one moment, I wanted to start today. This is my 3rd show, and I wanted to start today by sharing with people specific essential oils that kind of deal with or support what we're talking about. And today we're talking about listening. And so to be able sometimes to calm the brain so that we can be present and listen, you can use an oil called Console. And this oil has several things in it, including lavender, and I think there's frankincense in here. But the 2 key oils that are in Console essential oil are patchouli and rose. And there's evidence to suggest, and I'm just rolling the essential oil on the palm of my hand for those people who are piping in over the radio. You can't see, but I'm rolling the ball or the roller ball inside my hand. And I'm just going to breathe in through my nose. I cup my hands over my mouth. And what that does is in 20 seconds, it calms the limbic system, the hippocampus. It calms the brain. It allows us to pause and be present for people so we can actually hear them and listen. And people really need to be heard. And I think today in this world, we really need to be heard. So I'm going to bring on who I consider to be the expert, Stephen Kohler. So Stephen, here we go. Add to stream. Hello. How are you this morning? Can you hear? Can you hear or no?
I can't hear you. Sorry.
You can't hear me. Interesting. Try your volume. Is there? Wonder if everybody else can hear me. Now let me just ask Naima if she can hear me. Hold on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear. Okay. Is there?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing.
It's okay. So just 1 second. So we're just having some technical difficulties. I'm actually going to take Steve out and put him back in. So mute and go back in. All right. So
Hello, can you hear me now?
we're still trying to figure.
Sorry, I can't hear you either.
Okay, so let's see. We hear you and him. We hear you both, she says. Okay. So we can hear you, Steve. So I think this is funny because hold on. Let's see here.
I'm gonna leave and come back.
Okay. So while Steve is going back out and going back in, I'm just going to spend a couple more minutes talking about other oils then that also bring calm so that we can be in a listening state. This is Peace Essential Oil, which is one of my favorites. And again, you just inhale it. And we're going to bring Steve in. Hold on. Okay. Yay. Yay, yay, yay. So you missed all the nice things I said about you, did you?
I did. Thank you in advance for whatever you may have said.
So I told, just to bring you into the fold, I gave everybody your bio. I told them how we met at Young Entrepreneurs Academy and how you are an amazing people person. And not only are you great at listening and teaching people how to listen, but how to do it together. And I talked a little bit about your background in music. And I said, you may want to ask him. So that's the Reader's Digest version. And then the other thing I shared about was these oils. So sometimes we're kind of stressed out and we can't calm our brain enough to listen. So I was explaining, and for those people who didn't catch it the first time, this is okay. It's Console Essential Oil. And while it has like lavender and some other, I think, frankincense in it, it also has patchouli and rose. And we know that when it gets into we inhale it, it calms the brain. So it helps us pause so we can be in a listening state. And so every week, we're going to talk about a specific oil that relates to what it is that the speaker's going to be talking about with our guest, you. So anyway, so that's what you missed.
Thank you for the recap.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So let's see. Okay, so I think we're good. So, Steve, we've known each other, I think, since 2015, maybe 2015, I think it was.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, since the Young Entrepreneurs Academy. And it was at that time that you started, I think you were exploring your new journey in leadership and coaching. So would you share with the community, the listening community, and know that we're going to be bringing on callers and so forth because they're going to be enticed. Tell us about your journey, how this got started.
Jodi, thank you so much for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be with you and all your listeners. I've been thinking a lot about the question you just asked in that I've been very fortunate to learn a tremendous amount on my journey. I had spent about 25 years pursuing a path in corporate America that for many years I found very fulfilling. And then I got to a place just about the time that I met you where I recognized that I was noticing there was a shift occurring within me. And in the topic of listening, I was listening to myself, and my intuition told me that it was time to make a shift. And what I did was I started listening to myself. I started listening to others who had made similar shifts, and did some exploration. And I knew in my case that I had a desire to serve people in some form. I didn't know what way. I didn't know if I was going to teach, be a counselor, be a coach. So I started talking to folks far and wide in all sorts of professions. And the more that I spoke to people, the more that I learned that I really had a passion for the idea of coaching and using my passion for listening to do that. And so in I took a courageous move to exit corporate America. I became certified as an executive coach and started my own practice called Audira. And in Latin, the word to listen is audir. And so I founded my my coaching practice named Audira. And since that time, I've been very fortunate to coach senior leaders and leaders of all kinds to really become the best version of themselves and become fulfilled. And along that way, I also became very passionate about finding ways that I could integrate my love for music as part of that as well. And you can't see it. I have my guitar behind me too.
Yay.
But I love bringing music in as a lens to help leaders grow. And so anyway, I'm very happy to be on with you and look forward to our discussion today.
So, you know, one of the most unique things about you is the fact, and how you built the company, was the fact that you brought music into your teaching or coaching. And you pointed out to me years ago, which I thought was really intuitive, probably obvious for you, intuitive for me. You can't have an orchestra, you can't have a band that's not listening to one another, can you?
No, it's a great point. I like to joke that many of the leadership lessons that I learned, Jodi, were actually going way back to high school when I was in my first rock and roll band, because they are things that, at least in a creative, collaborative context like being in a band, are just foundational. The thing that I love the most is that in an ensemble like that, we're all leaders. The traditional old school idea that, there's one typically a hierarchy in which one person gives all the rules to everybody else. That's I think that's a falsehood. In an ensemble, whether it be a musical ensemble or anything else, the first thing you're taught is that we all work together. We all have our roles. Musically, some of us are the rhythm section, some of us are the melody, some of us are the composer. We all have a different role, and we have to work together. And in order to have the kind of impact we want, we all have to be listening to one another. Yeah. So I can't play my instrument at its most effectiveness if I'm not really deeply listening to what my fellow collaborators are. So thank you for pointing that out. It's always something I love thinking about.
Well, so, and it looks like, we have a listener, not necessarily a caller. So, and I just want to make sure that I am making sure that for the people who are not on Facebook or YouTube, that they have this phone number to call in. So if you have questions for Stephen Kohler, call 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak. Again, that's 515-605-9325. So, I practice, and I do say practice because we're never perfect, active listening. And I know that this is probably a big question that a lot of people come up with to you, and I'm curious what you think. When people get triggered, and for those, triggered meaning set off, upset by something they see, hear, smell, that reminds them something that has them be reactive and not responsive. How do you coach people to calm or what? How do you coach people like to start responding and listening?
I love the question, Jodi. Thank you, because it's something that happens to all of us and that we can all relate to. I think the first thing that I love to invite people to do is to remember that it's completely natural for us to get triggered. Going back thousands of years, the way that we are wired as a species when we're in a state of stress is to either go into fight or flight mode. And this was a physiological let's say practice that has kept us alive for thousands of years. The challenge with that is that in a modern context, let's say we're in a meeting or even in a relationship with somebody, it doesn't serve us. We're not necessarily truly being attacked in the way that we were maybe thousands of years ago. So the first thing is to recognize when we go into that triggered state, we tend to go into a state, as I said, that's fight or flight, and it's not serving us. And so the first thing is to recognize that we, our minds are literally being shut down, so to speak. We need to have the opportunity to really slow down. That's a big part of listening, is slowing down and recognizing that in that triggered state, we're not necessarily really present. And often what I like to do is invite everybody to slow down and take some deep breaths because that tends to start to lower the cortisol levels and the stress levels in our brain. And also recognize kind of the story that might be showing up, because a lot of times when we get triggered, an immediate thought or story shows up about what may be happening. If we're in a fight with somebody or in a conflict, we immediately go into often judgment mode or maybe victim mode, but some kind of story. And so if we take a chance, we slow down, we do some deep breaths, we recognize what that story is, we then have the opportunity to maybe shift perspectives and think about it from a different perspective. I like to think about it as kind of lifting the lid off the story or the box that we might be in. And get really curious. One of the antidotes from getting triggered is to go into a very curious place and start asking yourself and the other person to learn more, because a lot of times when we're triggered, we just shut all of that curiosity down and we go into judgment mode. So slow down, do some deep breaths, get curious, and ask yourself what might be true in this moment rather than what's not. And when you start really getting curious, you open your mind up to what's possible, and that starts to open up dialogue in terms of listening.
So these are really great thoughts. I want to talk about judgment. So listeners may be thinking, oh, judgment, I'm judging someone else. But I believe, well, first of all, we're massive judgment machines, right? But we are judging ourselves first. Like, we're really hard on ourselves. And so when I think about some of the most fragile souls that I know, I concern myself because, yeah, I know that they're judging others, but really they're judging themselves. How do you coach people around giving themselves grace? Not living by perfection, but by living by grace. Trying to get my chair in the right place here. But okay, we'll figure that out. Go ahead, Stephen.
Jodi, I love the question because you're absolutely right. So that's where most judgment for most of us starts, is with ourselves, even if we're not aware of it. And it starts with, the Buddhists talk about, the core of human suffering is this idea of being attached to things that have happened in the past that we can't control, attached to things in the future that we're worried about. And I raise that because a lot of that human suffering as it relates to judging ourselves is being attached to something we think we should be or shouldn't be. We often tell our stories of something that we need to be, and there's a delta between how we see ourselves and how we'd like to see ourselves. And that creates all sorts of judgment and untold suffering. So the first thing is, as obvious as it may sound, is to provide allow ourselves to be self-compassionate allow ourselves to be, to accept ourselves just as is, and really be one with this idea is that I am an imperfect creature and I'm okay with that, because we're all imperfect, right? And so I'm going to love myself truly as the way I was intended. And if I sometimes, Jodi, like to step way out and pretend I'm looking at like at the earth from, let's say, a million miles away. And when you take that kind of lens, you recognize that all of the daily things that we all get caught up on are, quite frankly, not that meaningful, and in some ways trivial. And almost taking a perspective that the universe never intended us to, to try to achieve something in the classical sense. It was to simply enjoy this gift called life on this planet that we're on. So the idea of kind of letting go of that attachment, that judgment, and just being, I think, can be an incredible first step towards self-acceptance.
So what are some of the ways that we can catch ourselves and do a redirect? I mean, like, I know, and I'm actually going to answer one of the things that I do and then let you share. So I know that, first of all, we're all judgment machines. We just do it. And so I know that if I catch myself judging, I do a redirect immediately in my brain. Like, oh, no, don't judge. Go with love. Start with heart, like that. What are some of the things that you've done or you've told other people to do because like I said, we all judge, to stop judging?
Yeah, it's something I practice daily, and I'm on a journey. I wouldn't say that I have it solved either. I'll use some language that some of your listeners, and certainly those of us that have been working in this area and the idea of mindfulness and leadership would recognize. One of the first things to recognize is that we all have these thoughts in our mind that are termed different things. Some of us might call them limiting beliefs. I like to call them the saboteur. You might call them the devil on your shoulder. But the key here is to recognize that thought of judgment is a voice in your mind to be aware of, and that it's not truth. Let me say that again. The story in our minds is literally a saboteur or a limiting belief. It's not truth. And the reason that's so crucial, Jodi, for your listeners, is that we often confuse the two. The thoughts in our head, we automatically believe to be true. So we might be saying, I am not enough, I'm not worthy, all of these things. And we immediately in a microsecond take that to be truth, as opposed to slowing down and saying, no, that's a voice in my head. That's a saboteur that is telling me something. And so when you're starting to feel that sense of self-judgment, recognize, oh, there it is again. It's my self-judgment. It's my saboteur. It's coming about because perhaps I'm tired. I might be triggered. I may have just had a tough day. I'm going to allow that voice to just go off to the side, and I'm not going to listen to it. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do something that we might call a part of our daily practice to get myself stop listening to that judge and start to listen to what I might call my sage, my deep, inner, wise, powerful self. So what are some things I might be able to do? Well, again, of course, we could take a few moments to do some deep breaths. Because again, science has shown the deep power of kind of what breathing can do. You don't have to do that, though. Some of us find creative outlets, whether it be music, cooking, doing art, even if it's for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour, but literally those activities shift how the chemicals are working in the brain and then shift our perspective. Some of us love to do physical exercise. I love to run. And what I found, Jodi, is when I'm in that place of being very triggered and self-judgment, even if I take a walk, I do jumping jacks, I do a run, in 5 minutes, my brain has a radically different perspective on whatever I was feeling. So I come back literally in a matter of moments with a whole new perspective on what I was feeling.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. We're going to go to commercial in about a minute here. And so while we're in commercial, would you consider getting out your guitar and sharing with the world how you use music? I have a few ads here I have to run. Would you bless us with this?
Of course, it'd be my.
Okay, give me a minute here. So, and I'm still new at running the switchboard here, but I think we got that. So let's see what we have here. Okay, dokie. So we're just gonna. I think we're here. We're just gonna try this one. I know it's not the right one, but it is what's gonna go on now.
About finances, family. If you answered yes to any of these questions, help is available. Don't worry, you're not alone. It's part of the human process. You only feel this way because you haven't mastered the voices in your head. No hype, just down to earth, solid, workable tools and techniques that you can practice daily. It's really food for the soul. Whether you want to learn how not to worry about anything, you learn type 2 diabetes, publish a book, promote your product or service, or just make extra money. Take advantage of the deal of the day. Go to zeldaspeaks.com or call 312-409-6619. Free shipping. That's zeldaspeaks.com or 312-409-6619. Stop worrying today. Visit zeldaspeaks.com.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Oh man, God sent the monthly sun bill today. This sunlight is really expensive, especially during this season. I'll probably have to work overtime to pay it.
Well, you better pay it on time. We don't want the sun to go out and we're sitting up here all day in the dark. Wouldn't it be terrible if God charged us for sunlight? Well, thank God, the light and heat from the sun is free. So why are we paying such high bills for the energy we use in our homes? Because we don't know how to use solar energy, the free energy from the sun. You can convert your regular home to a solar energy home and save tremendously on your electric bill. Take a look at your electric bill. Wouldn't you like to reduce or possibly even eliminate that cost altogether? Let one of our solar consultants show you how. Call today, 312-849-3456, and schedule a free consultation. That's 312-849-3456. Everything you need, what your body needs, is found in nature. So Suson Essentials doesn't do it any other way. Suson Essentials provides your employees and individuals access to over 20,000 nutritional products, and they are shipped direct to your door. Because Suson Essentials is certified in plant-based healing, we're permitted to offer you the best nutritional supplements on the planet. They're non-GMO and sustainably produced, and we take the guesswork out for you. Let Suson Essentials help you take control of your health today.
So we are back with Stephen Kohler, CEO of Audira Labs. And Steve, before we are blessed with your music, could you tell our listeners how they might reach out to you after the show?
Thank you, Jodi. Feel free to, check out my website, audiralabs.com. Or you can check me out on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. We're all over the place. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about how you're going to bring the music in and then do your thing.
Oh.
I did.
Sure, absolutely. So I find as a musician, I've been playing music a long time. There's so many parallels between the worlds of music and leadership. And one of the first things I'd like to show people is how we can use, for example, the idea that we're all instruments, and that we can listen to ourselves and to others, much like a musical instrument. So what I'm going to do just for a moment here is I've got an acoustic guitar for those of you listening. And I'm going to just play some things, and we'll talk about how we can use this as a metaphor for leadership. So I'm just going to play my guitar a little bit. Now, the first thing to notice when we're listening to a piece of music or to ourselves is we can listen to a few different characteristics. And this is so important, Jodi, because so often we're not really listening. And as you said earlier, we need to listen to ourselves. So the first thing we can do is to kind of listen to the tempo of a piece of music. And this is not unlike listening to somebody else. So we can listen to how fast or slow something is. So if I play something slowly like this, I could go. Or I could play something a little faster, and I could go. Or I could play, of course, something very fast. I could go. So the first thing to think about is how can we as leaders use the idea of speed or tempo to adjust the kind of impact we're making. So many of us are not even aware of kind of the tempo that we're going at. We like to go a million miles an hour. And that's great sometimes, but it doesn't always serve us. So the first thing I would suggest as a metaphor between music and leadership is to think about our tempo and our pace. And what does the situation that we're in need serve? Sometimes we do need something that's fast like this. And then sometimes we need to slow it down, right?
I'm dancing for the listeners who can't see us. Every time he like strums that guitar, I'm like, woo! This is the best morning. We're doing this again.
Well, hey, if we can't have fun, what's the point, right?
Oh my goodness. So carry on with tempo. Sorry.
So recognizing kind of our tempo, and again, what's the impact? As a coach, I love to talk about the idea of intent and impact. So often we may believe that we're having an impact, but it's very different. So think about what your tempo is like, how fast or slow, and what kind of impact that's having. The next thing to think about is kind of pitch. And on a guitar, of course, I could play a really low note like this, a low G, right? Something low. I could play something medium like this. Or I could play something really high. Now, each one of those notes is a different pitch, have a different impact.
Right.
And from a leadership perspective, we have to think about our pitch. What's the tone, what's the pitch, and what's the impact having? If we're always at, moving 100 miles an hour and we're on a really high pitch, that's going to have a certain energy around it. It's going to have a little impact. Think about the leader that you may have been with that was always, screaming, perhaps very aggressive, rushing around, and think about the kind of impact that had. It doesn't always serve us to kind of be there. So be intentional first about your tempo, be intentional about your pitch. And then last, think about volume. In music, we have this idea of kind of amplitude, and we can play softly. We can play kind of moderato or medium, or we can play loud. We have the opportunity as leaders to really adjust that volume, right? And be intentional. And we call all of this idea, Jodi, is this idea of expanding our dynamic range. Because so often we're very narrow. We tend to do one thing over and over and over because it served us. My invitation to all of us is much like a musical instrument, expand that range, adjust your speed, adjust your pitch, and adjust your volume for better impact.
I couldn't agree more. I was talking to a friend of mine who I was coaching the other day about how we all have to be chameleons in life. And that's what you're talking about when you're adjusting your tone, your pitch, your speed, your tempo. We have to be chameleons. We have to assess not only ourselves, but I think we have to assess what's going on around us. And in order for people to hear us, we have to kind of assess how they like to be heard, how they like to be spoken to, and, for me, I know that if someone is speaking too fast, they lose me. It's like, okay, bye-bye. And I'm not trying to be rude. It's my brain can't keep up. So how many people are saying bye-bye to you, not you, Stephen, but you, the listener, if you're talking too fast, too slow, or whatever it is for the person you're speaking to? I know that I grew up with my father, and he used I would call him at work, and he would say, "What's up, Jodi? Talk fast." But I'm slow. So I think the tempo thing is really key. And it's not that one tempo is right or wrong, I don't think, right? It's understanding the tempo for the moment in time. Is that correct?
Exactly. Know what the space, as we call it, needs in the moment, right? So what is the audience seeking, so to speak?
How do you do that?
You listen, right?
Right. So, and what are some of the cues that you pick up when you walk into a room and you determine what your tempo is going to be?
Thank you, Jodi. I love the question. There's this idea that I've been toying with called, high fidelity, or call it full spectrum listening. A lot of times we'll think about listening in a very conventional sense. We'll think about it with our ears. And most of us will say, "Oh, I listen. I'm listening with my ears. I heard what he said or she said." That's necessary, but it's not full listening. So when you walk into a room, I would invite you to use all of your senses. First of all, let's say in no particular order, use your eyes. Notice the body language in the room, whether it's one person or 10. Your eyes will tell you a lot, because as we know, something like 80 to 90% of all communication is nonverbal. So, and this can be done on Zoom too. So really look carefully at the person or people you're with and their body language. If you're not connecting with them, you can see it in their body language, as you said, Jodi. They'll look away. They may look tense.
They have their arms crossed like this, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So first, use your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, of course, use your ears. It's important to listen to not only what's being said, but what's not being said.
Exactly.
And so often we forget to kind of listen to the space in between. So use your ears. Use what I think you used the word intuition earlier. Use that sixth sense that we all have. The intuition. What do you feel? Particularly in North America, we are trained in many settings to really over rely on our analytical left side of our brain, which is important. It's only part of kind of our brain. And so I would invite you to lean into what psychologists call that right brain, that intuitive sense, mm-hmm. to feel what's happening in the room. And I'll give you a classic sense. Many of us have been in meetings, let's say a professional meeting, where the person, quote, leading the meeting will have an agenda that he or she feels like they have to get through. And they're just going off the bullet points. And meanwhile, they're completely not aware of what's in the room, how people are feeling, the energy. Somebody may have just had a big loss and they're on the verge of tears, or they may have had, a fight. And the person in the front is oblivious because they're not connecting in their body to that energy in the field. So long story short, listen with your eyes, listen with your ears, and absolutely listen to your intuition. And then adjust your tone, your tempo, and your volume to meet them where they are.
So I think that's so spot on, Stephen. Back when I was on my health journey, it was about 2014. I was at this organization. Well, it was the leader of the synagogue that I belonged to. And he was very concerned about getting through his agenda. And it was actually the reason I left the synagogue, because it was a consistent behavior, right? This is a leader, right? We're talking about how leaders lead. And he was more concerned about getting through his agenda versus hearing people and seeing what they needed. And I certainly wasn't heard. And so I left that leader, right? And people don't leave companies, they don't leave churches, they don't leave synagogues. They leave bad leaders. Do you agree?
100%.
Yeah. And so, to me, it's like, I often wonder why we don't spend more time with our leaders. And something happened to a friend of mine just the other day, where his come from was to really help someone through what I would call a difficult time. And like a human, there were hiccups along the way. We always have hiccups, right? That's just how it is. And the person who manages this friend of mine got mad at him because of the hiccups, not because of the fact that he spent time on his day off helping this person. They don't acknowledge the goodness. People are looking for what's not right. They're not acknowledging goodness. And I'm wondering if you want to share with people about how to shift the mindset. How do leaders shift their mindset to looking for goodness? I think, especially today, we've been trained to look for what's not good. And I'm here to tell you there's a lot of goodness going on in the world. We just have to open our eyes to look at it. But how do you get people to look at it?
I love that you said that, Jodi. In fact, I was just reflecting on that today, and I think many of us can relate to this pattern that we can all find ourselves in of not looking at the goodness. We can adopt a perspective that says, look, we're living in a pandemic. There's a lot of political strife. We may have family members struggling with their health, right? There's a lot of stuff that if we choose to can bring us down. And I believe that is tied in some ways to our culture of what you might call the doing versus the being. And I'll explain why. Again, in the culture we live in North America, Jodi, where you and I are, there's a huge emphasis on the doing part of life, which is the fixing things, solving things, achieving things, right? The doing. We've been rewarded our whole lives for doing that.
Totally.
So we've been trained to not appreciate, but immediately identify a gap, a problem, center our focus there, and then try to change it. And so much of life obviously is outside of our control. So when we try to immediately go to fixing and solving something that's outside of our control, it's gonna lead to a world of heartbreak. So my recommendation is again to go to what cultures for thousands of years have described as kind of this idea of going into a deep gratitude. And so rather than immediately going to fix and solve, go to a place of appreciation and gratitude. And to give you an idea of how I've been trying to practice this in my own life over the last year in the pandemic is appreciating not focusing on what I don't have, but appreciating what I do. So in my case, appreciating the fact that I'm here at home with my family, appreciating that we have enough food to eat, appreciating that I can play my guitar, and focusing on that. And what's amazing, Jodi, what I found is once you start there, a whole world of possibility opens.
See, you're spot on, right? That's why I love you, Stephen. Attitude of gratitude, right? I mean, it is a tough world, but I mean, I think about, all the things that you mentioned, clean water. Organic food. I know that, you're a whole foods shopper, right? You eat clean food. And the fact that we're able to put food on our table today, right? Given what's going on. These are beautiful things. Andrew Calhoun and I, who's on here, because he's got a question for you. We have a jar in the kitchen, and we put a picture of the sky from Pentwater, Michigan, where we vacationed, on there. And I wrote gratitude. And every day before we retire for the night, we put at least 3 things that we're grateful for, at least. And some of those things we haven't gotten yet. We're making the assumption, this is a good assumption making machine, we're making an assumption of goodness coming our way. So we're grateful for it now, like that.
I love that. And if I may, Jodi, what I appreciate about that is this idea, I believe, that we and I know there's been a lot about this topic, but I truly believe we manifest the energy that we put forth.
Oh, all day. All day. Yes.
So I believe in the way that you are practicing gratitude, that you're going to put energy in the world that will come back to you. Not that you're looking for it, but it will come back to you.
Well, yeah, so when I met you, let's go back, I guess it's like 6 years ago or whatever, but I was volunteering like you were for the Young Entrepreneurs Academy, and I was already disabled. I was still disabled. I hadn't started working yet. And I felt like the most important thing that I could do to help my body heal itself was to get out of myself and support others on their journey. So I think like taking the focus off of yourself and understanding what's going on for other people, then you don't have to have a pity party. At least I didn't. I already had my pity party. Don't get me wrong. So for listeners out there, if you're having a pity party, you get 10 minutes, okay? After 10 minutes, the pity party's over and go manifest. So Andrew's got a question up here. It's on the screen. And what he's asking is, Andrew Calhoun, if we are leading a meeting and we notice that people are not actively listening, what are some tips to engage them? Go.
Great question, Andrew. Thank you. We've all been there. The first thing is be aware of your own judgment. And I'll share an insight about me. Sometimes, ironically, I can get triggered if I feel somebody isn't listening. And so I go into the box. I get triggered myself, which paradoxically makes me stop listening.
Right.
So be aware of any of your own judgment when you recognize somebody isn't listening, because you might get angry, you might get defensive, like, gosh, how can they not be listening? So be aware of that and let it go, much like just letting it float down the river. Secondly, get really curious and ask them in a very genuine way what might be going on for them. And you can invite them. You could say, hey, John or Susan, I notice you seem a bit distracted. What's present for you right now? You might learn that, they have something really serious they're struggling with, and it's really difficult for them to be present, right? You might learn that you yourself have not connected with the field, as we talked about. So you can invite them in and then kind of adjust. Jodi, you did a beautiful job earlier talking about the agenda. Be aware that you can shift your focus from what I call the little a, which are the bullet points on your agenda, to the big A. What's your purpose as a leader for the meeting? And I would argue ultimately it's about connection. So by getting off the bullet points on your agenda and connecting with that human in the room, you're going to have a far more impactful experience. And then dance in the moment. Go with what shows up. Thank you, Andrew.
So for the listeners, first of all, great answer. And do not put the guitar away. Not going away. Sorry. So for listeners who want to call in, it's 515-691-4145. 605-605-9325. Press 1 to speak. If you're listening now and you have a question for Stephen Kohler or for myself, press 1 to speak after calling 515-605-9325. So, any more music, Stephen? Because that's just a gift. So
I'll play. Here's what I'll do. I'll play like a couple lines from a song I wrote, and then we can talk some more leadership if that works.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Times you will I have found the world's best opportunity. Oh, will I rue the day I have become my ambiguity? When will I change? When will I see? When will I be let go of you? What will I see? How will I be? When will I be let go of you? In the end, daydream, find the escape path. Daydream, find the melody from the moment with you. Something like that.
Awesome sauce.
Thank
awesome
you.
Sauce. Thank you. So, Zelda Robinson made a comment. So, Steve, Steve and I get to see all the comments that are coming through on Facebook, and I pop them up onto the screen here. Zelda Robinson is my good friend, and she's also a producer for the show. And she has a comment. She says, "We've been trained robots all of our lives, but many are awakening." What do you think about the programming, if you will, that we've had?
I love the question, Zelda. Thank you so much. I'm going to reference a book that I found very powerful in my journey. Some of you may have read it, and it's an easy book, but it speaks to the heart of your question. And the book is called The 4 Agreements.
Love it.
And for those of you not familiar, it speaks to the question, in that many of us are born and we're born into a culture, maybe a family, but we become essentially bought into a series of agreements that we never bought into. And they typically come in the form of the things that we're supposed to be, the things we're supposed to believe, right? The way we're supposed to act. And this is usually true as we're young children. And the problem with that is that they become unconscious agreements that so many of us aren't even aware of. And, we live our whole lives. And so the thesis of this book says, number one, become aware of the agreements that we've been kind of forced into or bought into unconsciously. Secondly, let go of those and create new agreements for yourself. One of the ones I love that so many of us have a hard time with is I am loved, I am enough. And I can do and believe and act the way in which I want, right? But we have the opportunity to form new agreements, these programs, right? Let go of the old programs, create new programs. So I would invite all of you to take a moment of what are those unconscious agreements that you may have been exposed to and bought into that aren't serving you. And I would invite you to form new agreements for yourself and find ways you can honor those for yourself.
So, yes, and I want to say, I recently, I don't know how I'm going to say this. So, I study, as you know, energy healing and healing through plants, nutrition. And part of that energy is shamanic work, which is the oldest form of healing in the world, based in the Mayan civilization. And they use music by the way, to help the body heal itself. They actually talk about drumming a lot. And on next week's show, we have Dr. Frank Lawless, who used shamanic drumming and put it into a handheld device to help the brain heal itself. So it's all about healing and music and using what's in nature. And going back to releasing these beliefs, shamans teach about connecting with the divine, connecting with God. And you can pray to God and request that they support you and that your spirit guides support you in releasing these old belief systems, releasing belief systems that no longer serve us. They no longer serve our highest good or the highest good of the community, of the world at large. And it does help raise the overall consciousness of the universe. Because if we're walking around with a belief system that was based from 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and all of our ancestors, we can't create today based upon the belief systems of the past. So whatever methodology speaks to the listener, to you, to anybody listening, use that. If it's music, if it's prayer, if it's a Bible, whatever Bible it is, you know, I have no judgment on how people pray, how people get to where they are going, just that they give themselves grace and don't tie yourself, don't tether yourself to something that's not getting you from point A to point B. Agreed or?
100%. Well said, Jodi.
Well, thank you. I mean, people deserve so much more. You know, I think that a lot of people don't feel like they deserve more. And we deserve all the goodness that's coming our way. And I think that we need to stop expecting the opposite, you know, like that. But we're at 8:02. We have to go to another commercial. Oopsie, hold on. Like, chi. So let's see what we got here. Oh, tomorrow's show, Naima, who is the executive producer of the show, she'll be on, and here we're going to listen about that, I think. Whoops. I love it when we have computer issues. So I guess we're going to go to Thursday's show. That one's not working either. So I'll tell you. So tell us about listening, and I'm going to work on this. That way we don't have dead air, okay? And if people want to call in, it's 515-605-9325. Okay, you go ahead. If the commercial starts, you know, we'll pause, right? So
cool. Absolutely. I love improvising.
Thank you.
So for the listeners out there, I want to give you a quick model that I use quite a bit, and it's called the 3 levels of listening. And the context before I dive in is that we all are living in an incredibly noisy, cacophonous world. We obviously right now in the US, in the world, have a pandemic.
The advertising just started. Sorry.
Join our global peace movement. Heavenly cause the world peace and restoration of life, transcend culture, religion, ideology, and other boundaries to achieve.
Oops.
Do you worry about finances, family, health, job, relationships? Are you in pain? Do you feel stuck? If you answer yes to any of these questions, help is available. Don't worry, you're not alone. It's part of the human process. You only feel this way because you haven't mastered the voices in your head.
No hype, just down-to-earth, solid, workable tools and techniques that you can practice daily. It's really food for the soul. Whether you want to learn how not to worry about anything, reverse type 2 diabetes, publish a book, promote your product or service, or just make extra money. Take advantage of the deal of the day. Go to zeldaspeaks.com or call 312-409-6619. Mention promo code The Female Solution and get free shipping. That's zeldaspeaks.com or 312-409-6619. Stop worrying today. Visit zeldaspeaks.com.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif. Join me and my co-host Kareem Hamid every Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the Female Solution Radio Show, as we explore that relationship that is the foundation for our society, the relationship between men and women, husbands and wives. Join our discussion as we seek to repair broken family ties and rebuild our community. Listen online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to our host. Or you can join us live on Facebook at www.facebook.com/the-female-solution.
Okay, a couple more.
Hey, it's time to take charge of your health. I'm Beata, your holistic life coach, and every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I'm here on the Female Solution to empower you to make choices that will assist your evolution to abundant health. I'm also blogging every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time at Soul Purpose Healing, where I bring you a spiritual chiropractic adjustment to bring you back into alignment with our Creator's love, compassion, and wisdom. Join me every Friday morning at 8 a.m. and Sunday evening at 8 p.m. for a time of unity, enlightenment, and love vibration. Shalom. I'm Beata, your holistic life coach. These days, it's more important than ever to work on your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Are you consciously breathing deeply in stressful moments? Do you have a plan or daily routine to maintain balance in your awesome body? Are you struggling to be disciplined in your eating habits? When you partner with me, I'll help you develop a personalized health plan that works for your particular lifestyle. You can find out more about me at yourholisticlifecoach.com, where you can also review my 3-step protocol to guide you to abundant health. That's yourholisticlifecoach.com, and I'm Beata.
Okay, and the last one.
Hi, I'm Jodi Suson Essentials. I started Suson Essentials in 2015 because of a personal health journey. I was over-medicated and put on 19 different medications. And yes, I reversed all my chronic diseases using plant and energy-based healing. It was amazing. At Suson Essentials, we support both consumers and businesses, and we do that with helping your employees or yourself with a food as medicine mindset. How Suson Essentials supports businesses and consumers is we teach people about a food as medicine mindset. So we support people on how to support their own immune system, how to support their brain health, how to support their emotional well-being. And we do that all with plant and an energy-based healing.
Well, we are back. And for the listeners that are just tuning in, if you're on Facebook, you can also call in at 605-9325. If you want to speak to Stephen Kohler or myself, Jodi Suson with Suson Essentials, just press 1 to speak. And then we are talking today about being an active listener. And at the beginning of the show, and I'm just going to share it once more, we talked about using essential oils to bring calm and pause to our brains, because as Stephen Kohler had mentioned, that we often go into fight or flight. And there's science to support that when you inhale rose and patchouli essential oil, you rub the oil in the palm of your hand, and you breathe it in through your nose, it actually relaxes the brain. It goes into the hippocampus and the limbic system within 22 seconds. And, easier than a pill, better than a pill, doesn't harm the body, and actually helps the body heal itself. So, which I think is really, really cool. But now let's go back to Stephen Kohler. And Stephen, is this a good time to ask you about your philosophy of life? Because I think the listeners would benefit from understanding you.
Big question. Thank you very much, Jodi. And again, great to be with you and your listeners. I would say I could boil my philosophy down to life to the 3 L's. That's my marketing background. I love acronyms and alliteration, but I would say learn, love, and live. I'm a big believer in life is not something necessarily to be achieved or conquered, but there's so much we can learn. I believe one of the unique aspects of us as a species is love. So, take this opportunity now more than ever to be with your loved ones, reconnect, whether it's through Zoom, and live, experience it. Do whatever you can to kind of experience those things. And I have to often catch myself to make sure that I'm living those 3 L's, but I appreciate the question.
Awesome. So, and thank you. It's a great answer. I mean, learning, be a lifelong learner. That's amazing. Love on people, right? Because you get what you give out. And live, experience everything that, life has to offer. I think that there's a possibility, pretty strong, that a lot of people are not living today. They're hiding. What do you think about that?
I agree. And I think there are always times in our life where we've allowed fear to get in the way. For many of us, fear has been a big component. And again, fear can serve us. It can keep us safe in times that the problem is we often let fear get carried away. So I would encourage all of us to, experiment, be courageous, jump off that edge that maybe you've been a little worried about jumping. And 9 times out of 10, the universe will catch you.
The universe will catch you when you jump off. Yeah, you're jumping off a cliff?
A proverbial cliff. Often what holds us back, as we were saying, is kind of that fear of the unknown, fear of what might happen. And I guess I would invite all of us is to, consider what would happen which we would rather do, right? To jump to see what happens, or always be, waiting to see what might if we did.
Oh, score, right? What would have happened if what did we miss? The opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Zelda has a message here on Facebook, Zelda Robinson. He says, Stephen was about to explain 3 levels of listening. And then she says, I wrote about it in my first book, The Passion Principles, Pathways to Purpose, Power and Profit. Working in radio, talking so much, taught me to be quite more talking less. Ooh. Okay, so go, Stephen. I'm going to let you address this. And Zelda, thank you for that, because I mean, it's a powerful thought that you have. I'm gonna let you go with.
I'm gonna mirror back a wonderful quote from one of my favorite musicians, Jimi Hendrix, and he said, "Knowledge speaks, wisdom listens."
Oh, yeah.
Knowledge speaks, wisdom listens, and that really gets to the point of what I believe that the power is in listening is not falling into the trap that many of us in Western society, which is just needing to talk to fill the space. So the 3 levels of active listening that I love, and I'll just do this really quickly, is to first recognize that we're all in a very noisy and cacophonous state of being most of the time. We're overwhelmed by digital devices and social media. We're overwhelmed by the events of the world, be it a pandemic, all of these other things. And that really prevents us from being aware of ourselves, aware of others, aware of the world. And that really gets in the way of listening. So level 1 is when we start to tune into ourselves first.
Mm-hmm.
And be aware of our own thoughts, our feelings, to be aware, for example, if we're triggered, as we talked about before, because most of us aren't even there. We're so caught up in what the Buddhists call the monkey mind, those thoughts that are racing around in our minds.
Monkey mind.
The monkey mind, yes.
Okay.
And so level 1 is when we start to tune into our own mind and really get present with ourselves. Musically, I like to talk about that, kind of getting in tune with your own instrument.
I like that. Okay.
Level 2 is when we start to go even deeper and we start to tune in. We expand beyond ourselves to those around us. So, for example, Jodi, you and I are in a dialogue now. I start to tune into you in a very connected way. And I start to, again, listen with all senses. I listen with my ears. I listen with my eyes. I listen with my intuition. And Jodi, you talked about the sense of smell, which is beautiful. To the extent that we can leverage that as well. Touch. By the way, I'm going to use a quick example. Musically, we do a technique called call and response at level 2. Okay. And call and response is something that we can all practice in our daily lives, where musically, let's say Jodi and I are jamming together. Jodi plays a riff on her instrument. I literally hear it without any judgment, any filtering, and I play it back note for note. And Jodi says, "Yeah, you got it," or not quite right. You missed a note. And then we flip. I play something. She that's the call, and then she repeats it back note for note. What does this have to do with, quote, non-musical? Well, the next time you're in a conversation, I invite all of you to practice call and response. So when you can have somebody say something to you, and then you can literally repeat it back word for word. And the reason that's so powerful is 99% of us don't do that because we're all caught up in our own stuff.
Right.
Right.
Is that similar to mirroring?
Exactly. Mirroring is another word for the same idea.
Okay.
And you can have multiple levels. You can repeat what you heard. You can repeat what you saw. So you can say, "Jodi, I heard you say," and then I noticed, Jodi, when you said that, you did this with your body, with your face. And then I felt, when you said that, Jodi, I felt, right?
You felt found. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's an example of kind of this mirroring or calling response. That's level 2. And level 3 is when you really expand into the room, into the space, if you will, and identify what's going on around us, right? So I've tuned into myself. I've tuned into you, Jodi. You and I are in conversation, and then I'm also very aware of what's happening around us. It could be others in the room with us. It could be other ambient sound. It could be the energy in the field. But I'm aware at level 3 about everything that's happening. And so that's the 3 levels. I would invite all of us to think about, where is your level of listening right now? Most of it's stuck in that noise out there. Mm-hmm. I invite all of us to really become focused on kind of deepening towards level 3 whenever possible.
That's amazing. And is that something you learned in your coaching, or did you experience this in your life and then give a label to it, so to speak, when you got trained? I mean, because I've always seen you as a level 3 listener, right? And I'm not sure that you had even started your coaching or training, I should say, specific to coaching when I met you. I could be wrong, but it feels like to me, and please redirect, that you had all these skill sets already, and that when you went and got the official training, you were just able to really put a designation behind and maybe some specific words to things that you've been doing all your life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I take that in deep gratitude. You may be right. I think, I guess what I would say is there are a lot of things that as I went deeper into my study around leadership and active listening and coaching really resonated for me. So to your point, it's very possible that they were elements that I already had in me, or I found a lot of resonance to. And then to your point, I was able to put some language around it, maybe put some methodology. The concept of deep active listening is not a new one. It's been around for many, many thousands of years. I think what I've enjoyed doing is kind of bringing my own kind of life experience, a particular creative element from a musical perspective to that. So building on the concepts of many leadership coaches and guides from the past and kind of putting my own take on it has been fun. And then just seeing it from a musical perspective and seeing how that can really awaken a lot of us. I don't care if you have any musical training. What I love seeing is you start talking about music and it just lights people up. So anyway, yeah, it's been a blast.
Well, are you going to light up the stage now for us with another jingle?
Sure, absolutely. Let me grab some lyrics. Thank you for offering. Let me just grab something here.
Sure. And meanwhile, while Stephen's grabbing something, if we have listeners, call in to 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to myself, Jodi Suson with Suson Essentials, or Stephen Kohler with Audira Labs. Looks like you're ready to.
Yeah. So I'm just going to play a little bit from a new song I wrote, and it's called She Finds a Way. And it goes like this. She finds a way to wake her eyes without quite knowing how she'll ever come to rise. She finds a way, gets up at last, ready for what she does not know will come to pass, and how she'll face this day to day, and no one can know how she feels and how it's so unreal. And if they did, they'd never know why she never smiles or cries. Something like that.
You just kind of like zenned me out.
So apologies for a couple wrong notes there, but that's okay.
Well, so no one else knew but you. Until now. Oops.
You're absolutely right.
So it's interesting. What are some of the most prominent things that you're finding as you're working with people in corporations? What's showing up in the midst of this pandemic? What's coming up for people?
Another powerful question. I would say people are struggling. They're struggling for many, many reasons. First, in no particular order, Jodi, what I've recognized, no surprise, is that we as a species are social. We crave and need connection.
Mhm.
And the pandemic, as we've all heard and felt, has created a sense of disconnection
Mhm.
us in a way that is profound. Physically, we are disconnected from our loved ones and our colleagues. So, emotionally, we're disconnected, and that's having a huge impact on us emotionally, physically, psychologically. So the first thing I would say is whether we put a name on it or not, many of us are struggling with that sense of loss. We're literally finding ourselves disconnected, and so there's an opportunity for all of us to find new ways to connect, whether it's over the phone, through Zoom, if there's socially distanced ways, whatever way each of us is managing the pandemic to get reconnected. The second thing I've noticed is that for many of us, a sense of purpose and meaning has been either questioned or blown up. You know, a lot of corporations, quite frankly, in a good way, I think, have realized that whatever path they were on, that in many cases perhaps were maybe more financially motivated, they're recognizing that they have an opportunity to connect to a deeper purpose, a mission-based purpose, where in addition to, you know, perhaps a financial objective, they are recognizing that they have a greater purpose in the world in some way, right? So I would say a sense of connection is important more than ever, a sense of purpose, recognizing how precious life is, whether you're part of an organization and you want to make a greater impact in society, or yourself. Many of us may have lost our jobs over the last year, and I think are recognizing that we have an opportunity to do something that fulfills us. And then the third thing I would say is recognizing that because life is so precious and short, we have the opportunity to really pursue these daily practices, daily routines, whether it's mindfulness, exercise, music, something creative, to do something that fills us up every day.
I love that. Yeah, I think for a lot of people who may have lost their roles or maybe taken a lesser role, you know, reduced hours, it's an opportunity to reinvent who you are. You know, I studied under Dr. John Demartini, who's a human behaviorist worldwide. And he really taught me to look at the silver lining of everything, like even the pandemic, even the fact, you know, I because I was over medicated, you know, not all the listeners know my story, but basically, you know, over medicated 17 or 19 different medications or 17 medications, 19 years. I always forget it because it's not really worth remembering, other than the fact that I know that at one point I was mad at my doctor. I couldn't have children because of all those medications. And then, of course, I had tumors all over my ovaries and uterus and all that, which all came out. But he said, well, where have you had children in your life? And I said, well, I taught at the Young Entrepreneurs Academy. I got 22 different kids every year. And all of a sudden I saw the gift, right? So you can see the lining. The gift was I didn't have to give birth to any of them, which for those ladies who stand with me, don't push out a football. That's all I'm saying. Secondly, I didn't have to change diapers and I didn't have to put them through school. But I did get to teach them and mentor them and be with them, have fun with them and love on them and all those. And so if we can take any situation that looks like lemons, add a little sweetness to that, preferably not sugar, because it lights up the brain, which doesn't allow you to pause or listen. But anyway, it could be a really good thing. You know, Zelda has a question, and she says, can you type in those 3 levels of listening again? So could you share that with us, Stephen?
Absolutely. And Jodi, I may ask you to be my co-pilot in scribing if you
Oh,
would.
I am scribing for you, darling. Yeah.
And thank you, Zelda, for asking. So the first one is what we call level 1. And level 1 is where we really tune into ourselves and our own instruments. Then there's level 2, when we really tune into those around us.
So I am so not a fast typer. Hold on. So level 1 is tune into ourselves and our own instruments. Is that right?
Exactly. Beautifully heard.
That one's in. And then we're going to do level 2. Go ahead.
Yes, that's when we tune into others.
Tune in to others.
And we practice what we call the call and response.
Practice. The call and response, right?
Exactly.
And some people know that as mirroring, because it not only is, and I'm going to put in mirroring just for other people to kind of think about it in that way.
Beautiful.
Because I know that when I was in sales, this is going back to like, I don't know, 30 plus years ago. I know that I intuitively sat the same way as the person I was selling to. So you might want to observe yourself, right? Not only are you restating exactly what they said so they know that they're being heard, but then also look at how you're sitting, your positioning. Are you mirroring how they are? If they're crossed arms, are you crossed arms? Are you open? Are they open? Like that. And how are we receiving? So, okay, so now, 1 second, level. Not the best typist. I have other gifts. Level.
You're doing a beautiful job listening, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Go for it.
And then last but not least, level 3.
Uh-huh.
And level 3 is where we really tune in to the space. And think of it as almost like you're in a performance hall, a theater, and you're listening to how everything is coming together.
So tune into the space, like you're in a performance hall, listening to how everything comes together, right? Let me see. Let me just say, like you are in a performance hall. Okay. So, when we're tuning into the space, and just to kind of restate this for the listeners, and please correct me if I've missed anything or you want to have it communicated differently, we're tuning into people's energy, their body stance, their pitch, their tone, whether or not their body language. Are they smiling? Are they not smiling? Are they serious? Are they hiding behind a cup of coffee or behind their phone? Right?
Exactly. There's this, and you said it beautifully. Another way to think about it is if you were to, walk into the space and listen to a concert, what would it sound like?
Oh, yeah.
And in a practical way, let's imagine you walk into a conference or a meeting. Would it sound angry because everybody's on edge? Would it sound quiet, but perhaps filled with tension because nobody's talking? Would it feel jubilant and joyful? So really tapping into that energy that's in the space and tuning into that and recognizing it again, rather than just pushing through your agenda, really noticing what's in the space.
So, I remember back in the day when I was, looks like my computer just went funky. Okay, so I remember back in the day when I used to work, I don't even remember what company it was. I think it was at Norwest Card Services when I launched the debit card program. And they would start meetings and they'd have music going. Because you don't want to walk into a room with someone's icky energy. And to your point and how you've brought Audira Labs to the world is using music actually to shift energy too. Isn't that right?
100%. And I've seen other facilitators do a masterful job where we'll be at the end of maybe an intense part of a workshop, and the energy is intense intentionally. We'll take a 5-minute break. They'll put music on that's totally different, and it'll radically change the energy coming into the space. And it doesn't have to be music. Music is one of the many forms of techniques that we can use. But again, from a listening perspective, be aware of what the energy is present, and then what you, as let's say a leader in the space, you want, what you'd like to shift it towards, what's needed, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, because the things, I shift energy in spaces. One of the things I do, which you may not be aware of, oops, sorry, I clear energy in a home, or in any space or an office or what have you. I do it, I do it through music. I use 432 hertz music that you can get off of YouTube. It's the 432 hertz frequency creates harmony in the frontal lobe of the brain. I use it for my pets. I use essential oils. You diffuse them, you wipe things down, and the bloodline of the plant is what helps the body heal itself and what helps shift the energy in a room. And you can do something as simple as lemon. Lemon is powerful. It's like the happy plant, It's yellow, it's happy. You take 3 drops of that in a veggie cap and you don't need coffee. I'm just saying. And then the third thing I do to shift the energy in a room is prayer, So you've got music, you've got plants, basically oils, scent, and prayer, meditation. And so when you start using God's gifts, that's, to me, that's where the power is. And I don't think that anything that we're talking about really is costly. I mean, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do. Thank you for asking. Just look up Audira Labs on YouTube, and you'll find us. A lot of fun content there.
Well, I would think you have a lot of tips that people could start learning right away, and then maybe invite you into their company to, help. What do you think? I mean, I'm like, get them out there.
Jodi, it's like you do this for a living.
So here's the thing about me. When I see something good, I want the entire world to have it. And that could be essential oils, clean water, Stephen Kohler. Oops, there you go. So I think the world needs more of you.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. Something, Jodi, that showed up for me that you were talking about. I love this idea, you're talking about frequencies, you're talking about different things we can do to kind of shift energy. In music, there's this idea of resonance. And it very much speaks to this idea in a practical way of how when frequencies are aligned, they create something powerful in the form of sound, and you can feel it. As an aside, I'm taking vocal lessons right now, and they talk about how you can feel the resonance in your chest, resonance in your head when you're hitting that tone. And I love to invite leaders, teams, and organizations to really think about, to what level are you resonating? As an individual leader, to what extent are you resonating with your own sense of values and purpose? Because so often we experience stress and anxiety because we're not really tuned into our own sense of purpose and values. When you're with a team, to what extent are you resonating together? Or are you at conflict? Many of the times we're in conflict because we're not listening to one another, right? And then to what extent is your organization really resonating as a whole? Whether it be kind of living its own purpose or resonating internally. So this idea of frequency and connection, I think, is a powerful kind of concept that we can tap into.
So forgive me, but I'm going to go a little bit off topic, but on topic. I don't know. I think I've spoken to you about this a little bit. So it's about resonance. And frequency, but in another way. So we know that everything in the world vibrates at a different frequency. Would you agree to that? Or okay. So and I don't have it with me today, but there's this thing, this device, this FDA cleared healing device called the Healy, and it helps people resonate at a level that gives their body homeostasis, right? A balance. And Dr. Carolyn McMakin, who has also a YouTube channel, wrote a book called The Resonance Effect, right? It's all about frequency because we're electrical beings at the end of the day. And so I think it's so cool that you bring that up because it's all frequency. The words, I was talking to Dr. Frank Lawless the other day, and I'm not going to quote him exactly, but I am putting him in my new book, which is about how words are just vibrations in the air. So what are you vibrating, right? Is it a good vibration? I mean, Beach Boys, good, good vibrations. Okay, so I want to apologize to the community for my singing voice. We'll leave that up to Stephen.
Not at all.
But it's all about vibration and frequency and resonance. And when people start just looking at that instead of making it about them, you stop personalizing it, like Miguel Ruiz, he has the 4 agreements, right? Don't take things personal. Always do your best, which will vary from day to day, depending if you're sick or not. Always be your word, right?
Yeah.
And what's the 4th one? Do you remember?
It's all about being true to oneself in the
end. Yeah.
And I just want to add something that showed up for me as you were talking about resonance, Jodi, just a moment ago. But energy attracts energy.
Man.
Right. So when we, in a practical sense, how many of us have been in a room, somebody walks in and they're emitting all sorts of negative energy. It affects the whole room.
Yeah.
Right. And likewise, somebody comes in who's joyous, smiling, it creates a shift. So we have the opportunity. There's this idea of intention and impact. What's your intention? What do you want to bring forth energy wise? And then what are you noticing?
Yep. I'm typing that into the thread. So what's your intention and what's your
impact?
What's your impact?
And how closely do those two align? Because a lot of times, Jodi, as your listeners know, we have blind spots. We may intend or believe that we're carrying a certain, energy forth, but it's quite the opposite, right?
Right. So, well, I don't know if I ever told you this story. This is kind of what started my part. Well, it didn't start. It was a part of my journey. I worked for a company. I thought I was doing the right thing. It was when I started really getting exposed to genetically modified foods, right? And so it impacted my personality. I became irritable and, just not necessarily the most pleasant person to be around. And they asked me to do a 360-degree profiler. You've heard of those? And so I gave out that profile to the people I thought were my friends. And they were my friends, okay? So, but they all came back with the same thing, which is, basically, the gist of the matter was I thought I was being nice and I was coming across cranky, judgmental, like all these things. And, I saw that as a huge gift. Because it was like, wow, my intent, even though I have a very good heart, I have a very good soul, that's not what was being received. And the power is when people choose to understand your intention is not what is being received. And that's huge. So I had to make some huge changes, and I was happy to do it because I love people and I want people to have joy and I want them to have peace and I want them to have love. You can't do that if you're walking into a room with and you bring in poor energy. And a lot of people right now have a low resonance negative energy because they're trying to fight off what's going on in the world today. And so I would say, do your best just to rise above it, because if we can all, and actually I would say, here's an easier way to do it, because that's hard to do sometimes. Go to the YouTube channel, type into Stephen Kohler's YouTube channel, right? Get some tips. Also go and search out 432HZ, frequency music. It just creates harmony in the frontal lobe. Listen to him, listen to the music, boom. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that they can follow you, Stephen, on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, right? Twitter. Are you on Twitter too?
I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and then of course our website is audiralabs.com.
Awesome. And if you are looking for information on, Stephen will support you with leadership, effective communication, effective listening. And if you need help with effective eating, choosing the right foods. And I don't tell people what to eat. I tell people what each food does, and then you get to choose. And there's power in knowing that cinnamon, like for instance, will help balance your blood sugar levels, right? Burdock root will help balance your blood sugar levels. So for those people out there who are diabetics, there's a little tip for you. But when you have that kind of power to manage what's going on with your food, that's really, really cool. So I'm going to put in your website. So it's
www.audiralabs.com.
It is labs. Okay, I wasn't sure. And then .com. All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And so do we have any questions? We've got any call in from 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak. And then I'm just going to see if there's anything we haven't covered today. So I know that you offer coaching and to individuals, but you also help create team, help with corporations with teamwork. What else how does that show up when you're supporting these corporations?
Thank you for asking. What I tend to, the words that I hear the most often, whether it be a leader or a corporation, Jodi, is two words. One is we're stuck and we need support, or we're looking to grow. The third word might be change. And so what I really love helping leaders, teams, and organizations is first and foremost, clarify what they want. Sometimes organizations are on a journey where they change, like the pandemic. For many organizations, pandemic blew up their business model and they have to refigure out what they need or what they want. Number two is they may know exactly what they want, but they're having a hard time getting there, and they're getting in their own way. So from a corporation perspective, I help create experiential workshops that help organizations get to what they want. And it usually is in the form of a leadership or a team workshop in which we're working on some foundational things like alignment, where the team, again, may be an incredibly, a team with a lot of high achievers. They may have a lot on the line, but they're not working effectively together. They're not on the same page. So we work using music as a metaphor to help them get on the same page. We help them learn how to listen and communicate. We help them increase their accountability, and we increase their ability to be creative collaborators. And we've seen some really powerful outcomes as a result of our approach.
Love it. Love it. And accountability, I think, is really huge. And I think that that's probably showing up a lot now that people are working from home in one of two ways. people are so concerned about doing the right thing. They're probably working too many hours and not taking enough time for themselves. And then there's those who probably take too much time. You always have everybody. So, have you seen both sides of the coin this year?
I have, and I would say probably the most interesting thing is the balance, as you said, Jodi, that so many people are struggling with, the balance between trying to practice self-empathy and self-compassion and accountability. And it's an interesting nuance because for many of us, it has become an either or. Like I either have to be working 20 hours a day and not taking care of myself, or somehow believe that if I take care of myself, I can't get stuff done too. And so it's for each of us finding what that balance looks like, and having this kind of whole body, whole life balance of recognizing how we can be accountable to ourselves while also being accountable to let's say the organizations we're working for.
I couldn't agree more. I'd like to talk a little bit more about balance. You know, that has been a struggle of mine all my life, where, you know, I was really a workaholic. And it's literally, once I was aware of it. So for those listeners, you know, you want to be aware of what's actually happening here. Oops, hold on a second. We're having a little, here we go. You want to be aware if you are a workaholic and how that shows up for you. And for me, what I realized that if I didn't slow down, the universe was going to slow me down anyway. Because if you need to slow down, the universe is going to slow you down. It, God forbid, it could be a broken leg, you know, it could be a cold, it could be, you know, just getting, I don't know. So going back to what we were talking about before about self-sabotage, right? So if we're not giving ourselves what we need, which is the title of my show, self-cell care. So self-care, the self, and then what are we made out of? Cells, right? We're gonna suffer needlessly. And I think, is it Warren Buffett who only works 4 days a week? Is that right, Stephen?
Sounds right.
Yeah. So he only works 4 days a week so that he can have time to think and create. And you talked earlier about people always want to be in go mode and produce. But I think maybe some people, not all people, haven't had a chance to see that if they do slow down, they can produce more. Would you agree?
Yes. The phrase I love that I'm borrowing from some wise soul was, you've got to slow down to speed up.
Oh yeah, there's a whole book around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a book, I think it's called, I don't remember. Is it called Slow Down to Speed Up? Is that the name of the book?
It may. It's although it's counterintuitive, I see it happen in my own life every day. When I'm feeling rushed, that's my signal that I have to slow down.
Yeah. It's just kind of silly. It doesn't seem logical, yet it works. So for those listeners who are struggling with the I'm always speeding, give yourself a chance to slow down. You know, meditate. Some of the things I suggest to people, get a coloring book. Just do some coloring, you know, flowers, butterflies, whatever turns you on. Maybe it's in tall buildings with Superman on top. Music, right, Stephen? Reading, going for a walk, shoveling the snow if you're in Chicago. Really sorry about that.
There's a lot of it.
I know. So I'm just going to take a minute to share with people what's coming up for the rest of the week. Is that okay with you?
Please.
Okay. So let's see, because I don't have this all memorized. So I'm just going to go with my my notes, which are over here. So, or not. So let me just see here. Okay. So, but tomorrow we have Naima Latif. She does our Wednesday show. And let me see here. I'm almost there finding. Okay, there we go. Naima Latif, who is our executive producer, and Kareem Hamid. They talk about repairing family relationships, which I think is huge. And I think if the pandemic has provided anything, it's provided the opportunity to do just that, right? Be with your family, listen, and repair, reinoculate with the good stuff.
Yeah.
Thursday, we have the Women's Roundtable. Friday, this woman who speaks on Friday, her name is Vieta Robinson, and she's amazing. She's also talking about health and wellness. She's a holistic coach like I am. And I encourage the listeners to really tune in because she's cool. And then Saturday we have, it's rotating. So the first Saturday is nonviolent communication with Zana. The second Saturday is Black Taboo with Love, Joy, Empowers. The third Saturday, and I don't know which one we're on, is Travel with Deborah. She's really cool. And Mama D on the fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mama D. And then Monday morning, we've been so grateful to have Zelda Robinson pipe in. And she is going to be talking about higher learning. So, and Zelda says ronsway.com has great coloring books for women. I have several. Yay, yay, yay. All right. So, and Zelda, I saw your note about missing the last break. We did not. We actually had 3, I believe. So, and I think that there may be one other wrap up. And Zelda, if you want to pipe in and tell me what that wrap up is. I love being a new host because I just get my notes out and figure this out as we go. I think we just have to, I think we're just going to, our commercials will hit in soon. Let me see if I can why don't you talk about some listening skills and I'll talk to my soul sisters here. Remember to start the ANU International. Thank you. And at 2:30 to go into this. Okay, so Stephen, I'm going to start something here. In about a minute. So go ahead and talk about listening until the music starts.
Absolutely. So I would just kind of wrap up by encouraging everybody to ask yourself, how are my listening skills today, and what can I do to improve them? Because we can all improve our listening. Identify kind of what gets in your way. When do you tend to get triggered? When do you shut down your listening? What level do you tend to listen? Are you tend to be at level 1, stuck in your own mind? Do you sometimes do what some of us do, which is called listening with the intent to respond, where we might not be talking, but we presume we know where the other person's going? Or are we truly listening at that deep level, at level 3? And I think there's a lot of opportunity of things that we can learn when we just open up and truly listen. It's been a pleasure to be on with you today, Jodi. Thank you so much.
It's been great to have you here. I know that we're going to be having you back with Dr. Frank Lawless.
90 seconds.
We've got 90 seconds left on the show, but I'll be sharing a new date with you to come back on with Dr. Frank Lawless, who also works with music and healing. And you guys are just healing in different ways. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure.
Yeah. So I think that we're all good. I'm going to try to do a couple banners. Hold on while we're doing that.
60 seconds.
There we go. Got 60 seconds. So let me just. All right. So,
Spain.
Stephen Kohler, Audira Labs. Check him out on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. Go to his website, Jodi Suson, Suson Essentials. All the same social media platforms, different websites. And actually, you will find Stephen Kohler on my website. Just going to tell you. So there you go.
Kenya.
So just be another minute.
Israel. Sudan. Pakistan. Shukriya. Afghanistan.
It seems like a little low.
Tashakkur. Saudi Arabia. Shukran.
10 seconds.
Okay. So I will be seeing you soon.